Stop, you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Subscribe now, we have new stories every day. Now let's go. It was a beautiful winter day in Austin, Texas. The temperature reached 67 degrees Fahrenheit with a light breeze from the west. The evening promised to be even more impressive, featuring a full moon and temperatures near 50 degrees. To top it all off, Florida-Georgia Line was performing at the Moody Center, and Henry Kane had 2 front-row tickets to the show for him and his wife, Melanie. This was supposed to be a Valentine's Day celebration a week early for the 33-year-old couple who had been married for almost 5 years. The only problem was that it wasn't warm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. In fact, it was about 10 degrees there, with a foot of snow already on the ground and another 10 inches expected before the precipitation stopped. What did this have to do with Henry, Melanie, and a date night with Tyler Hubbard, Brian Kelly, and the rest of the FGL crew? Good question. Henry had been called at the last minute to Sioux Falls the day before to deal with a major computer system glitch at Sanford Health Biomedical Center. The neonatal unit there was participating in a national research project when the problem arose. Henry was his company's top-it specialist and rarely went on business trips, but since Sanford was their third-largest customer, he boarded the first available Delta flight on Thursday. It took him about 6 hours to resolve the issue. He had a reservation on a 6 a.m. flight back to Austin, which would allow him to get home a full 10 hours before the concert. The only problem was that by 3 a.m., there was already a foot of snow on the ground, and it continued to snow. His Delta app lit up with notifications of delays and finally cancellations. Henry, fully alert, was searching for options. He was well compensated and worth every penny, but his boss would be furious if he chartered a private jet home. Yet, he had just saved the company several $1,000s, more than it would have cost to rent one. By 5 a.m., it was clear that no one would be flying anytime soon. The snowfall was expected to continue all day, with temperatures near freezing. Some called it the storm of the decade. All Henry could think was damn. Around 9 a.m., he dialed speed dial number 2 on Melanie's work phone. Her assistant Kim answered on the second ring and connected him. "Hi, honey. I'm so excited for the evening. We'll be together. What time will you be home?" "Mel, have you seen the weather in Sioux Falls?" "No, Henry. I knew you were heading there, but I wasn't paying attention." "What's going on?" "Unfortunately, a lot of damn snow. 12 inches have fallen already, and maybe another 10 today. All flights are canceled." "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I was so excited about tonight." "I know. I've been working a lot lately, and this was the perfect chance to start a romantic weekend together." "Damn, sometimes I hate your job. I'm upset too, Mel, but you know I only travel 4 or 5 times a year, and only when absolutely necessary. This was a major crisis with a major client. As you said, we haven't seen each other much in recent months. But that's you. You spend an insane amount of time at work, not me. If there's one thing my job does, it's that we can afford a pretty good life in Texas." "You're right, Henry. It's just that we've been seeing each other less than usual lately. I know a lot of this is on me. I'm working hard to become a partner, and that means I need to put in the time." "You're already in that place where you can decide your schedule most of the time and keep it within reason. I'm still a year or so away from being in control of my hours. I miss you and I miss us. I miss you, darling. Why don't you take your friend Sue and relax? The tickets are front row, and it'll be too much trouble trying to sell them. I can arrange for a car to pick you up and bring you home. Don't let my confusion spoil the enjoyment of a great show." Melanie was hesitant and considered just selling the tickets. She thought about staying home and watching the concert online. She could log into her Ticketmaster account and sell the seats without issue. She went on about how she didn't want to go unless he was with her. Henry insisted, encouraging her to go and have fun. He reminded her that she had a new pair of Takova's boots and that they looked sexy on her. After several minutes of persuasion, she gave in. They both said, "I love you," and hung up. 5 minutes later, Melanie found her spare phone in the back compartment of her tote bag and dialed the first quick access number. This was her side of the conversation. "Hi, how's your day going?" "Well, maybe I have something to cheer you up. Henry just called, and he's stuck in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Yes, he had to fly there urgently, and suddenly there was a huge snowfall. You're lucky, aren't you?" "Yes, luck loves you. How about we spend the evening together? I still have those 2 tickets to Florida-Georgia Line tonight, but the husband will be up north, cooling off. Is Diana still visiting her parents in Memphis? Great. How about we enjoy the evening together? I have a new denim skirt and boots that I'd like to try on. I'll order an Uber to your house and we'll go from there. How's that sound?" "Yes, I'll order an Uber Black so we can have tinted windows," she giggled. Melanie worked through lunch so she could leave the office at 4:30 p.m. She wanted to take a bath and relax for an hour before heading to the concert. Before leaving, she called her best friend, Susan O'Connor. They had met during Melanie's first year at the firm and became immediate friends. They were almost the same age and had been married only 2 weeks apart. They had a lot in common. "Hey Susie Q, I need a favor." "Honey, what's wrong, Nell?" "Happy to help if I can." If Henry ever asked you how our evening was at the Florida Georgia Line concert tonight, your answer will be great. "What the hell, Mel? Are you still seeing David?" Mel giggled. "Yeah, I just can't give it up, Sue." Sue didn't laugh. "Mel, Henry is an amazing man, and you make an amazing couple together. This is the point where you start thinking about kids and a family. You're not in college anymore, sister. Why would you risk everything for sex?" Mel sighed. Her friend was loyal, but she was also more conservative about loyalty. I know, Sue. Henry is a great guy, and I never intended to lose him. David is wild and fun. We're both happy in our marriages, but we just have this sexual spark that rocks our worlds. Mel, you really need to think a little deeper before you open your mouth. If you were truly happy in your marriage, you wouldn't be sleeping with your boss, and you wouldn't be sleeping with an employee if he was happy either. Which part of your marriage vows didn't you understand? Enough with the lecture, Sue. Are you going to cover for me or not if Henry ever asks? I won't volunteer any information or bring out the subject, but if he asks, I'll say I was with you. Front row, right in the middle. Thank you, Susie Q. You're the best. We'll have a spa day next weekend at my expense, so much like Henry to buy great tickets, and now I'm using his gift to cheat on him with David, Sue thought to herself. What she said out loud was, "Okay, Mel." Mel hurried home and began preparing for her date. She poured herself a couple of glasses of her favorite Pinot Grigio, soaked in a bubble bath, and then got dressed. She wore a white lace bra under her blouse, unbuttoning the top couple of buttons to show just a hint. Her skirt ended 6 inches above her knees, showing off her toned legs. Her boots were dark gray and matched the vest Henry had given her as a Christmas present. It was her first time wearing it, but the irony escaped her. She glanced at herself in the mirror, pleased with the reflection. She thought she'd attract attention tonight, but was only interested in one person. She had another glass of wine after ordering an Uber, and when it arrived, she directed the driver to make a stop along the way. The driver was happy to oblige for the extra fare. The car pulled up at the gated condominium, and Melanie gave him the entry code. 2 blocks in, the car stopped, and right on schedule, David Miller rushed out of his condo. He jumped into the back seat, greeting her with an eager and passionate kiss. "God, you smell and look amazing, Mel. I think we should skip the concert and go straight to your house." Melanie accepted his kiss, saying, "Calm down, big boy. We'll have plenty of time later. It's going to be a great show." The Uber driver stayed quiet, though he noticed her engagement ring and diamond band as she caressed David. For her part, Mel had never planned to cheat on Henry. They had met on a blind date set up by her best friend, and the chemistry was immediate. She found Henry to be outgoing, kind, and trustworthy. He was a little more reserved, but his strength and wisdom gave her a sense of security. He had gone through college on an ROTC scholarship and served in the Marines for 5 years after graduation. This experience, combined with his caring nature, made him someone others could rely on. His integrity was as attractive to Mel as his good looks. Henry, on the other hand, was bewildered by her attention at first. He never saw himself as particularly attractive, but Mel's interest made him feel valued and appreciated. As they grew closer, Henry's doubts faded, and he felt secure in her affection. They married after an 18-month courtship, including a 4-month engagement. Henry's military background and communications helped him land a great job in Austin, where he quickly advanced. Mel graduated from law school shortly after their wedding and started at a mid-sized firm specializing in oil and mineral rights. David Miller was a senior partner at her firm. Married with 2 teenage kids, his wife, Diana, was a high school principal. Mel had always respected her, thinking they were well matched as a couple. Working for David wasn't easy. He worked long hours and expected his team to do the same. In her 3rd year, Mel had managed to cut her work week down to 65 hours, which seemed to satisfy him. They began spending more time together, and the boundaries between work and personal time blurred. Eventually, they started confiding in each other about personal matters. 6 months ago, those conversations took a turn. They won a major case bringing $2 million to the firm. That night, the team celebrated in David's office, where he opened a bottle of bourbon. As the party wound down, David asked Mel to stay. The others exchanged knowing smiles as they left. When the door closed, he walked over to her, and Mel began unbuttoning her blouse. He hugged her and pulled her into a passionate kiss. From there, the relationship escalated quickly. They met regularly for intimate encounters, often twice a month. Tonight, they entered the concert hall holding hands, careful not to draw too much attention. Meanwhile, back in Sioux Falls, a disappointed Henry decided to watch the concert live stream. If I can't be with her, maybe I can see her when they show the crowd, he thought. After the opening act, FGL took the stage with a bang, performing 4 fast and loud songs. There wasn't much camera work on the audience until the 5th song, a slow love ballad. Henry almost left for a break but stayed, remembering it was Mel's favorite song. 30 seconds later, his world collapsed. The camera focused on the front row couple he recognized immediately. Mel, in her new boots, was passionately kissing David Miller. There was no mistaking her or the man beside her. Henry sank to the floor, speechless, as the agony of betrayal hit him like a punch to the stomach. He was dazed, dizzy, and struggling to breathe. The camera panned to other couples but returned to Mel and David. This time, Mel saw herself on the screen. The look of absolute panic on her face was impossible to miss. She buried her face in David's chest, pulling his head down so he wouldn't look up. Henry sat on the floor, tears streaming from his eyes, alternating between muttering, "Why Mel?" and feeling the pure anger of betrayal. "Damn you, Mel. And of course I'm going to deal with you, David Miller." As he started to regain his senses, he knew he had to act quickly. His Marine training reminded him that inaction in a crisis was fatal. He called his friend and lawyer, Michael Lipscomb, who was surprised to hear from him at 9:30 p.m. on a Friday, but even more shocked at the topic. After confirming Henry's account, Michael told him to hang up and wait for a call. 3 minutes later, an unfamiliar Austin number rang his phone. "Hello, this is Henry Kane." "Hello, Mr. Kane. This is Erica Hamilton, a lawyer and close friend of Michael. Call me Erica, and I'll call you Henry," she said briskly. "Henry, I'll be blunt. We don't have much time. You saw your wife with another man on live TV in an intimate setting, correct?" "Yes." "Okay, where were they sitting, and what were they wearing, as best you recall?" Henry answered quickly, his tone calm and precise. "Good. Send me the latest photo of your wife. I have a private investigator on the way to the concert now. He'll follow them tonight and the rest of the weekend if needed." "Can you come up with an excuse to stay in Sioux Falls for a couple of days?" she continued. "One night at a concert won't build a strong case. If you're delayed by snow or claim more client work, we have a better shot at catching them red-handed." "Yes, I can arrange that," Henry replied. "Perfect. Send me the photo ASAP and hang in there. I'll call you no later than noon tomorrow with an update. Contact your wife at a reasonable time and let her know your delay extends to Monday. I'm guessing your employer won't object." "Yes, I'm a senior VP, so my schedule is flexible. There's some work I can handle here with the client." "Great, we'll talk tomorrow." Henry was grateful for her swift action. His head still spinning, he barely slept that night. By 5:30 a.m., he gave up trying, got up, and looked out at the still falling snow. He turned on the news. 22 inches of snow had fallen in the last 36 hours, a record for Sioux Falls. Nothing would move anytime soon. He began taking notes. Treason was unacceptable to him, whether it was the first offense or the 100th. Trust, once broken in a close relationship, could never be restored. The contempt they both showed him was unforgivable. They had kissed and danced openly in a very public setting in his town. Even if only a few acquaintances saw them, rumors would spread. No, he wasn't going to put up with this. Henry reviewed his actions over the past 5 years. He had always been faithful, even in thought. Not that he had women knocking at his door, but he rarely looked at other women. He'd been madly in love with Mel and deeply committed to her, their marriage, and their future. He knew he was a good husband. Mel's betrayal was cruel, but he couldn't deny she'd been methodical in hiding it. She had used his own generosity and his gifts to hurt him. At 9 a.m. he called Sue. The phone rang twice before she picked up, sounding nervous. "Hey, Henry. I heard you're stuck in Sioux Falls. I saw the weather map. It looks terrible." "Hey, Sue. Yeah, it's quite a snowstorm here. Texas hasn't seen this much snow in 100 years, let alone a day. I'll be glad to come home. Is there anything I can do to help?" she asked. "Actually, Sue, just a quick question. How did you like the concert last night? I thought the opening song, 'This Is How We Roll,' was amazing. I watched it live from my hotel." "Yes, Henry, it was a great show. Einamel had fun, but she missed you." "Thank you. One more quick question. You're a big FGL fan, so you might have mixed up 'This Is How We Roll' with 'Up Down,' which was actually the opening song last night. How was that possible, Sue?" Silence followed on the other end, so Henry continued, "Sue, I know you're Mel's friend, and I considered you one too. Now, it seems you're willing to lie to me for her benefit. I need to know why you disrespect me this way." A lump formed in Sue's throat, and tears gathered in her eyes. She barely whispered, "I'm so sorry, Henry. How long has this been going on, Sue? How long has David Miller been entertaining my wife?" "About 6 months, Henry." Though he had anticipated it, hearing it confirmed struck hard. He fought to keep his composure. Does Jim know you're lying for Mel? No, Henry. Jim doesn't know. He'd be terribly upset and ashamed if he found out. Okay, Sue, I won't tell Jim about your role in this. I imagine he'll have questions for you once everything comes out. When that time comes, I suggest you be honest with him. If I find out you've told Mel about this conversation, I'll call Jim myself to ensure he understands the role you played. She was crying openly now. No, Henry, I won't tell her anything. I'm so sorry and ashamed. Henry hung up without saying goodbye. Sue realized the weight of her poor choices in the name of loyalty. She knew she'd have to talk to Jim sooner or later. Henry then called Mel. She sounded sleepy but played the loving wife perfectly, expressing disappointment that he wouldn't return until Monday. She casually mentioned that she and Sue had fun at the concert, but that it wasn't the same without him. She ended the call with, "I love you," to which he replied, "Goodbye." At 11:58 a.m., Erica called with an update. "Our PI is exceptional. He got photos of them at the concert, and they returned to your house afterward. He was ahead of them and managed to install recording equipment in several rooms. They spent the night together, having sex in the bedroom, then in the kitchen. We recorded their casual conversation about their relationship, including other encounters at the office, and plans to keep their affair hidden. The investigator will continue tracking them." Erica asked Henry what he wanted next. He'd been taking notes all day and outlined his thoughts. "She has publicly and privately betrayed me for 6 months. The marriage is over. I want her to feel the humiliation she put me through. Her actions should be exposed to her friends and family. There's no need to exaggerate. The facts speak for themselves. I want her served at work. I'd also like Mrs. Miller to know everything. Maybe she'll serve him at the same time. If we threaten to sue the firm for their affair on company property, we might motivate them to dismiss him. I don't want to stay in that house. Too many memories. I don't even know if I want to stay in Texas. However, I want her to remain there. We should split the sale 50-50. I also want to protect my assets as best as possible." Erica asked several clarifying questions, adding that Mel might receive alimony given his income, but that her infidelity would strengthen Henry's case. They'd arranged for Henry to stay in Sioux Falls or return incognito until Tuesday, the day Mel was scheduled to be served. Over the weekend, Mel didn't reach out to Henry. She and David were likely enjoying their time together, oblivious to what was coming. Henry knew he needed to call her to avoid raising suspicion. He dialed around 9 p.m., and Mel answered, sounding pleased. "I missed you. I miss you so much," she said. "Sorry, Mel, but it'll be Tuesday. I have a flight through O'Hare that should get me home by 3 p.m., so we can plan dinner together." "Okay," she replied, disappointed. "I'll tell James no more winter trips. He ruined our weekend." Henry almost laughed at her cold response. Inside, he thought, what a cold, cruel woman she'd become. They talked a bit more, and as they were about to hang up, Mel said, "Henry, I love you so much." "You know that, right?" "Yes, Mel," he replied, holding back tears. "I know exactly how much you love me." And with that, he hung up. He couldn't bear to let her humiliate him further. On Tuesday at precisely 3 p.m., Henry was sitting at the kitchen table. He wasn't sure when Mel would return, but he knew she would come soon. As he waited, his phone buzzed with texts and calls from Mel. The messages read, "What the hell? How dare you humiliate me at my workplace? Answer me. You better be home when I get there. I will never forgive you for this." Henry, feeling the resolve of his Marine training, was ready to face her. The front door opened with a loud slam, and Nell stormed in, her face flushed with anger, the divorce papers clutched tightly in her hand. "Henry, where the hell are you?" she screamed, marching through the house until she saw him sitting calmly at the kitchen table. She threw the papers onto the table. "You son of a bitch, you filed for divorce and humiliated me at work. How could you do this? Do you understand how humiliating that was?" Her tone softened slightly as she continued, "Why, Henry? Why did you file for divorce? We love each other. We have a great marriage and a great future together. Why would you throw it all away? Talk to me." Henry remained calm, taking in her frantic expression. This was the first time he had seen her since the concert. Her eyes looked empty, and her face was a mix of anxiety and desperation. He noticed she hadn't even looked through the entire file she had thrown down. "Sit down, Nell," he said, his voice cold and controlled. She glared at him but slowly complied. "Did you even look at the file attached to the divorce petition?" She shook her head but didn't reach for it. "Let's start with this, then," he continued, sliding a photo across the table. It was a shot of Mel and David at the concert, wrapped in an intimate embrace. "Recognize this. That's you with your boss. This isn't a lie. It's the truth right here." Mel flinched as if the photo were a snake ready to strike. "David isn't," she started to say, but Henry cut her off. "Quiet. It's my turn to talk now, and you'll get your chance." He placed a flash drive on the table next to the photos. Here's a recording of you and David having sex in our bed, Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. There are also recordings of conversations you had with him here in our house, discussing your previous sexual encounters and how to keep your affair secret from me and Mrs. Miller. Mel's face turned pale and her mouth opened slightly in shock. By the way, Henry continued, Mrs. Miller was served divorce papers today, too. I don't know how he's going to explain this to his teenage children, but that's not my problem. You knew you weren't the first, didn't you, Mel? You're the third woman he's cheated on his wife with, all from your office. You thought you were special, didn't you? Mel seemed to be reeling from this revelation, as if she convinced herself she was somehow different. There's more here, Henry went on, flipping through the documents. Sue, your friend who helped you lie, finally broke down and told me everything. She listed every night you lied and said you were with her, and even your little business trip to South Padre. By the way, Sue's marriage is in trouble, so I wouldn't advise calling her. Her husband was very clear, if she speaks to you without him present, their marriage is over. Henry's voice grew even colder. You destroyed everything we had. You've lied to me, betrayed me, and mocked my love for you. I thought I'd be watching my loving wife at that concert, but instead, I watched you kiss another man. Mel, I might have been able to forgive an affair, but you didn't just betray me. You despised me enough to humiliate me in front of everyone. I won't stay married to someone who treats me with such contempt. Mel's composure finally cracked, and she began to cry. I never meant for it to happen like this, she whispered. I got caught up in the moment with David after we won that case, and I thought I could stop, but I didn't. I'm so sorry, Henry. He stared at her, his face a mask of quiet rage and pain. You didn't just have an affair, Mel. You flaunted it. You even used our bed, our home. And in that bed, you told him you didn't want it to end. Mel was visibly shaken as she sat back down, defeated. You don't understand, Henry, she said, trying to control her sobs. I never loved him. I was reckless, stupid, but I only wanted to feel something different. I love you, not him. Henry's response was unyielding. Mel, you wanted this. You lied to me, humiliated me, and made a mockery of our marriage. I will never be able to look at you with love again. From now on your own. She reached out, perhaps hoping he'd take her hand or offer some comfort, but he recoiled, pushing her hand away. Don't touch me, he said, his voice icy. I'll sleep in the guest room until we finalize the divorce. I'll respect your space, but don't ever try to touch me again. He stood up, towering over her, his expression filled with loathing. You made your choices, Mel, and you'll live with them alone. I loved you with everything I had, and you threw it away. Mel collapsed into her chair, her face buried in her hands, sobbing. She had gambled with their marriage and lost everything. Over the next few months, Mel fought the divorce proceedings in hopes Henry might change his mind. She delayed, citing her commitment to therapy, her love for Henry, and her wish to reconcile. She even petitioned for court-ordered counseling, hoping it might convince him to stay. However, Henry remained resolute, seeing the divorce through to the end. After 7 months, the court granted the divorce. Their assets and savings were split, and Mel received a small alimony amount, but Henry managed to retain most of his earnings. She left the firm where she had worked with David and relocated to San Antonio. The day she left, she turned at the front door to look back at Henry, but he simply watched her, expressionless, from the window. He didn't wave goodbye, and she left his life forever. David Miller's life also unraveled. His wife, Diana, left him, taking their 2 children. His partners pressured him to resign from the firm. He began spending his evenings at a rundown bar on the outskirts of town. One night, as he left the bar, he was met by a tall, imposing figure. It was Henry. There were no CCTV cameras nearby, and Henry stepped into David's path. Hey, David, he said, before landing a powerful punch that broke David's nose and jaw. Henry leaned over him and said, I wanted you to know exactly who did this to you. If you try to press charges, I have 12 retired Marines who will swear I was with them all night. And if I get arrested, one of them will finish what I started. No charges were ever filed. About a year after the divorce, Henry was leaving a cafe in downtown Austin when he held the door open for a beautiful woman around his age. She smiled and said, Thank you, good sir. It's nice to see some cowboys still have manners. He smiled back, replying, You're welcome, ma'am. As he walked to his car, he paused, considering. Then he turned and headed back inside. The woman was seated, facing the door, and she looked up as he approached. Smiling, he extended his hand, saying, Sorry, but I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Henry. She took his hand, smiling warmly. Nice to meet you, Henry. I'm Laurie. Why don't you pull up a chair? For the first time in a long while, Henry felt a glimmer of hope. He'd lost much but learned to rebuild. His heart was scared, but he knew he had the strength to move forward. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.